Top 5 deal breakers in a residential real estate transaction. Reason number 2, financing. Financing does fall through in transactions. As a seller, what can you do to help that out? Well, you want to make sure that the buyer is pre-qualified and can actually do what they're doing. So you want a pre-approval letter at the very minimum. You can get proof of funds if they're paying cash or if a large part of their transaction is being cash. Let's say they're buying a $500,000 house and they're getting a $300,000 mortgage. Well, it wouldn't be out of the question for you to ask for proof of funds for the other $200,000. I've seen situations where that money's tied up in a 401k or some other kind of investment vehicle where it's not readily accessible, meaning they can't just walk into the bank and ask for a cashier's check or ask for a wire transfer. It takes some kind of time period to get that done. In this very mobile world that we're living in, we do have a lot of folks that are coming from overseas. They're bringing cash in from overseas as well. Some of those countries, the money is basically like being US money. Like if they're coming from Canada or something like that, that's a very quick, easy transaction to get that money across the border from Canada into the United States. But if they're coming from some other place that's the United States government has as a questionable type of thing, for example, China. I had a transaction in China, which recently the money was coming over. It took 2 months for that money to wire out. China had to go through their processes on it. Then when it came to the United States government ran it through their processes to make sure there's no money laundering or drug money or anything like that. Unfortunately, that's just the world that we live in right now. Another thing that you have to think about is in the financing, your buyer is going to always look at your property and they're going to do their due diligence on the property. They're going to come visit the property. They're going to hire an inspector. They're going to hire an appraiser. The bank's going to do their due diligence. All of these things are making sure the asset is in the condition and of the value for which you're saying it's worth in order to get that financing accomplished. Well, most sellers go into the transaction and say, okay, the buyer came, they must be able to afford it. We'll take them at their word. Well, pre-qualification letter, again, getting proof of funds is something that you can do. If they're getting a loan, the chances are that they're getting either an FHA loan, a VA loan, or a conventional loan. All of those loans have to go through a desktop underwriting scenario in order to get approved. That always has to be done. Sometimes the buyer will be out in the marketplace shopping and that has not been done. They've got a pre-approval letter based on a conversation that they've had with a loan officer. Now, I'm sure everybody's trying to do the best job they can in those pre-qualification letters. But if I ask a question, how much money do you make a year? And you say, I make $100,000. Okay, well, if I don't ask deeper questions, then I understand where that money's coming from. Is it coming from a W-2 income, a 1099 income? Is there overtime or bonuses included in that? And that's the complexity of the money that we have to understand so we know how much that money can be used towards the purchase of a new house on an annual basis. So if you're making $100,000 a year, and you're getting certain monies that are allowances for cars, allowances for this, well, that's not going to be considered usable money towards the purchase of a new property. So the lender may be in a hurry, maybe forgot to ask the question, maybe the potential buyer misunderstood the question, and those things happen. So if you have that DU process done, if the buyer has that DU process done, that means they've taken all their documents, they've handed them all to their lender has taken their time to go through that process, run it through this desktop underwriting system, and they've come back with an approval. Hopefully it says approved eligible. That's the highest approval that they can get. So hopefully they get that approval. In that case, when you see that, there's an extremely high likelihood that that transaction is going to go through, and it's probably going to be a pretty simple transaction to get done from that point forward to get it to be completed without any problems. The lenders looked at all the income, dissected the income, understood it, asked the appropriate questions, asked follow-up questions before they run this through there in order to get that process done. Sometimes you can see the DU, not often. Many lenders don't want to give that out, but you can ask to see if it's been done and been run, and ask what the approval rating was on it, and the lender will likely share that with you. But those are just a couple thoughts that you can possibly put out there to help you get through the financing situation. And if you're buying a house, don't go and open up new credit cards. Don't apply for new credit. Don't get a credit card. Don't get a car loan, a lease. Don't go buy furniture. Don't do any of those sort of things. All those kind of things will create a ding on your credit, which could jeopardize your financing. So if you're buying, please, please, please don't do that to yourselves. Don't do that to the sellers in a transaction or anyone else. No new credit ever for any reason.